Hello and welcome back to the trajikast here on GoldenPiDgeon Gaming. My name is Traveler Stott, and this week the week that I'm recording this has been a week. Don't mean to laugh. It's just strange how all this stuff is happening. This is a podcast in response to George Floyd passing away at the hands of a police officer. That's a soft way of telling it. I could go hard and say that he was murdered, but he lost his life because of the actions of someone else. So yes, it is murder. It's what you would classify as murder. A lot of people don't see it that way, but this is what it is. I don't even know where to start with this. But let's do this. Let's do this. I know that I tweeted out a couple of things last couple of days, because I have a certain feel about the subject. The last tweet that I sent was about a thread, and that thread was about all the things that has happened between the cops and the public, and just what has happened in Florida in the last couple of years, the way that I have to explain it to you is, well, let's get it down. A man was arrested for forgery in Minnesota. George Floyd was arrested for forgery, supposedly. Suspect of forgery. No, we still don't even know if he even did it or not. But yet and still, when he was arrested, he was held in a position, a knee on his neck, for an extended period of time, and that ended up causing his death, although the coroner has not said what has caused his death. But he fell silent while being literally on the knee of the police officer and did not respond, and was pronounced dead when he got to the hospital. The 4 officers involved in the arrest are currently fired. And there was something today of this recording that the prosecutor said there may be evidence that exonerates the police officer. I don't learn the police officer's name. There's too many out there that has done stuff like this. I mean, you try to learn the names of the people who are affected by this, and it's too many. It's too many. It's always something else. There's always somebody new. When it comes to this, we always go, all the way around. And I was talking about that I sent a couple of tweets, a thread that I put on the Twitter, and was that, with all these things that has happened, between the cops and the public, that people think that in the relationship between the cops and the public, it's the public who needs to change. Mind you, there are segments of the population who are extremely authoritarian. You may even call it, fascist, that will let any action by a cop go. Is what is necessary for any action done by a cop is necessary for the cop to do his job, by an officer to do his job. No, it's not. You would think that at this point in time that we have built weapons of mass destruction where we have bunker busters and all sorts of weapons to kill. We don't have any to subdue suspects without killing them. Like, literally all of them are just to kill. They have a gun. They try to lowball that and go with a stun gun, which puts 1,000, 10,000 volts, I don't know what the amperage is into a person. It'll stop them. But so many people have died from that, they had to stop using the stun guns. It's supposed to lock up all your muscles, but everybody is affected the same way. Some people end up falling and hitting the back of the head, and they end up dying that way. There's always something. But there have been riots in Minnesota and Minneapolis. I think that's where it happened. It's a hard subject to talk about, somewhat. And the only reason I say that is because there are two minds that go along with stuff like that. Because, you know, there's going to be people out there who always support the police. Always. No matter what they do. So ergo, when somebody dies at the hands of police, they don't think anything needs to change. Yet, it's still, you know, you have people who are always constantly critical of the police and don't like them doing a lot of stuff. So when it comes to this, they're always loud, but nothing ever happens. I mean, there are particular incidents that happen across the nation over the years. You know, there has not been like much change. We've had cameras put on officers to make sure that there's evidence of what the officers are doing, and in turn the officers have used it to detail things that have gone on during their arrests and when they travel. Just depends on what the situation is. But there hasn't, I think that's the last change. Like any procedure out there, there's always something. There's always been some video or something like that of the bad behavior of the cops. Me, per se, I don't hold the police in a high regard as far as, you know, a position. Whatever job you are owed respect, but I'm not going to respect you because you hold a job, you know, a specific job. I'm not going to do that, no. But some people just, they hold it in such a high regard that they don't, you know, they can't see anything tarnishing it. You know, this guy who is responsible for the death of George Floyd, people are very, you know, quiet on it because it happened a couple of days ago and it went around Twitter. The video of him dying went around Twitter and social media a lot, and you know, a lot of people had a lot of things to say. But then the riots happened. Then other people came out and started speaking. They didn't have anything to say about the death, you know, saying the video of the death of George Floyd. But yet still, when the quote unquote riots happened, you know, then it's something like, oh, I can't believe you rioted. Well, when they was protesting before the riots, he didn't say anything. This is the only thing that you reacted to. You were fine with that death. You were fine with it. And with that, and that's really what it is. Really what it is. That, you know, when I say that people, I'm all the way around the place, and I don't mean to be, but when I think about people who hold the police in a high regard, you know, they get mad when people don't say that, you know, they don't trust the police or don't like the police or fuck the police, you know. And they're like, I can't believe that they would do that. Like, well, people have reasons. You know, people have their own personal reasons. You can't sit in, you know, just say that, no, you don't get to have it. Yes, they get to have it easily. I mean, easily they do get to have it because it's their opinion. And if they can come up with facts and be like, well, so-and-so happened to somebody else, and I sympathize with the person more than I do with a cop, hey, that's on them. If that person who sides with the cop always sides with the cop, then, you know, that's on you. But like I said before, you know, when it comes to the relationship between the public, you know, between the public and the police, you know, it's not just on the public to change their behavior. You gotta work together. You have to work together. The way I put it was that if a husband cheats on their wife, it's not on the wife to change her behavior to have the marriage work. That's not how that works. You know, the husband has to change. They're the one that took an action that sullied the relationship. You know, if you have an agreement that he can go sleep with whoever he wants, you know, in the middle of the marriage, that's one thing. But when it comes to cops and the populace, cops in the public, we didn't agree that you can go out and just go kill random people. That was not an agreement, because I wouldn't want me killed for you know, an arbitrary reason. There's been many deaths over the years. Tamir Rice is one. A particular one because he was playing with a toy gun in a park. He was shot seconds after a cop pulled up, and people look at that situation and be like, look how quick it took for a police officer to pull his gun and end a life. Although it was a toy gun, and toy guns are supposed to have orange barrels on it to differentiate it from a real gun, and I guess it wasn't enough to be seen. I'm assured that the orange tips happened before this, and I know even I'm guilty of this. That yeah, we did take the orange tips off guns, our toy guns, because we wanted to look more real. But I guess that just stopped making toy guns look so real, so it wouldn't be the situation where, like an average gun, that you wouldn't want somebody dying because of a Nerf gun, although that would look totally different than the regular gun, automatic gun, or whatever kind, something that would actually kill someone. If those guns didn't look so realistic, except for the orange tip, they wouldn't be so attractive to play with, hopefully. But yet and still, regardless of what gun some child is playing with, you don't want them to have their life snuffed out in 10 seconds of seeing a police officer. Just change that. 10 seconds in being seen by a police officer. I don't know what it's going to take for this to get better, because there has to be a reckoning that happens. I mean, yes, the police officers were fired. Means absolutely nothing to me. I feel that it was done too quick, because how quickly did you do how did the investigation into whether these officers were negligent in their duty so quick, but you didn't teach the officers to be more diligent in the application of their job, where they let a man die? This is political bullshit, and that's why that's why all this theater, that goes along with it, what the police does, police union, and all these other things that go along with when somebody dies, and everybody's like, oh, fuck the police, and they want to sit and hoop and holler now, who's going to be doing the work, between now and the next time it happens, because it always happens. So what's going to happen, between this time and the next time it happens? Because like this happened in Minnesota. There was a guy in Baltimore, and he died in the back of a police van. Somehow, while driving, he snapped his neck, and they haven't figured it out. Those people were fired after the investigation after a couple of weeks. And I think that, still haven't figured out what's going on. He was eternally decapitated. The police officers were fired. I think a couple of them were arrested, and I don't remember what's going on. That's another thing. I was talking to a friend of mine, Big Will. Hopefully he doesn't call me out for a personal conversation, but I think he wouldn't mind. It's just I'd ask the question, like, well, what has happened to the rest of these people? Because like you're seeing this, and you're seeing the cell phone footage of cops doing this. There was one video in California where police officer was just swinging at the head of a dude, and just swinging, and like just furious. Not even trying to subdue him. He's just like hitting him in the head. Wasn't even trying to arrest him or anything like that. We tend to forget that, everybody has cell phone footage now and things like that, and we wouldn't see, footage from the cops from a lot of this stuff. But the reason why cops have cameras now is because of Rodney King. And I bring that up because what has happened to those police officers? Are they out of jail? Are they among us? Are they? I mean, they could be sitting here in Florida right now, and they are the most famous police beating in the world. Why? At that point in time, there was no public footage of what cops were doing. And here it is, you have 4 police officers, strangely enough, beating a man in the middle of the street. And it took a neighbor, because it was a rather affluent neighborhood, which is the problem. Which is the problem, you'll see why. Because this affluent neighborhood, middle-class neighborhood, one of the neighbors had a camera, pulled out a shoulder rig camera, VHS shoulder rig camera, and started videotaping the arrest. And that's when everybody saw the beating of Rodney King. And then the world saw it. And people saw that this was happening in America. People in California, they said it was happening all the time. This is the first time the world saw it. And they were not shocked when the police officers were let off, because they already, the rumor is that they had decided that there was going to be rioting going on when they were found innocent, and they were found innocent. They were retried and found guilty. I forgot what on, but that's what ended up happening. And I think they're out of jail, because that happened, golly, that's prior to the 90s that happened. That was a long time ago when that happened. We've gone from there, from the old over-the-shoulder camera, VHS camcorder recording Rodney King, to cell phone footage of George Floyd passing away, and not too much has changed. Not too much. I say that because the sensibility of what people have about cops hasn't really changed that much. Those who are righteous and things like that, fine. Notice that the phrase "Blue Lives Matter" wasn't around back then. Wasn't a thing back then. I mean, Blue Lives Matter, for those who don't know, the phrase Blue Lives Matter came about as the second iteration of All Lives Matter, which was being spoken about when Eric Gardner in New York was choked out by the police, and ended up losing his life as well. People started yelling Black Lives Matter. Some people didn't like hearing that, and they yelled All Lives Matter. Then people were like, well, yeah, all lives matter, but they had to do that to him to save their lives, ergo Blue Lives Matter. And it's just blue lives, all lives matter, blue lives matter are just phrases. Excuse me. All lives matter, and blue lives matter are just phrases to keep Black Lives Matter silent, to not focus, because you have to focus on what the problem is, and there's always somebody who doesn't want you to focus on the problem, because once you focus on the problem has to be fixed. And that's the thing. People who are all lives matter, when somebody dies in the hands of the police, they don't think anything's broken. They don't want you to fix it. I mean, it's my show, it's my podcast, so I can go on as long as I want, but there's a lot of things that people don't understand. Like, I've been lucky. No, I have not been harassed by the cops and things like that, but I've seen it a lot, and there's a reason why people distrust the cops, because there's not anything that happens. Look how long it took to have cameras on the cops, and then you have instances where they're cutting off their cameras because stuff is going down. There was a story years ago where certain cops in the neighborhood, I think it was Pennsylvania, I may have that wrong, but something would be wrong with their car, so they would be like, oh, car sounding funny. You wouldn't hear anything. They'll go out, raise the hood of their car to cover up the camera on their car so they can go do something else, so it wouldn't be caught on camera. And I think that they have a societal status that's a lot more important than what people, what people should give them. Because if we really held them to a higher standard, then they would be worthy of this status. But we don't hold them to a higher standard. They go out and go do their job, and there's certain things. Yeah, there's going to be certain bad guys. There's going to be certain monsters in the dark that you expect police officers to go get. The boogeyman that steals the child out from the bed in the middle of the night. The one guy in the neighborhood keeps kids from coming home at night. And parents try to tell the children, what's going on, and you try to protect them. But when that fails, and the heat is not and you need somebody to help you out, you know, the police officer is the person that you call, you know, which is fine. You needed that help. But a lot of people don't feel that the police are here for justice. They're just an enforcement tool, you know, for the other authorities, you know, the money men, authoritarians, and people and subjugators, because, you know, you can't have poor people getting out of hand. You can't have poor people getting out of hand. You know, how dare they want something? Because it wasn't, you know, saying it wasn't like people holding the Confederate flag sometimes, you know, that stomped out Occupy Wall Street. Cops went in there, water cannons, blowing everybody away, arresting everybody. You have these protests and things like that, and they arrested a couple of people, and, you know, doing the riots and protests. You know, because you can't have people against the police. You know, they're going to do their job, and, you know, the police want to be able to do their job, but, you know, you want them to be held accountable. And it's just funny to me that, you know, a lot of people are quiet now. The people who are quiet about what that officer did were also quiet just a couple of weeks ago in the Michigan, the Michigan Congress, Michigan legislature. There were armed people going up to the courthouse, and they were trying to force their way in to have the legislature pass a law to open the state back up because of the coronavirus, because of the pandemic. And it's just the wildest thing to see that. But nobody was concerned about the cops then. This is a little bit off, because, you know, when I talk about the status of police, and I'm saying this as a reflection of society, of what they think the importance of the police is, because they weren't saying anything that the cops should be protected or anything like that when people were yelling in their face and knocking them down when it came time for, you know, people wanting haircuts and things like that. The cops' response to armed people running up into, you know, legislation and holding protests and things like that, and holding protests in order to open the states back up, because we have the social distance for this pandemic. You know, the cops were calm. There were a couple of arrests, maybe some people put in custody, you know, just until everything got quiet out. Didn't hear about too many arrests and things like that. But the police acted calm, fine, because that was the public wanting what they wanted, and they did it, in such a way that the police felt they didn't need to do anything in response that was highly aggressive. But we have this one man, George Floyd, saying his name, that was accused of something, and instead of getting evidence, they put him in custody, and he died in custody. He was already arrested in handcuffs, and then in some kind of way ended up on his face and had to be restrained. But they won't say why. You haven't seen any evidence of him resisting to be put on the ground on his face and then have it put on. Because if he's arrested, why isn't he back in the squad car? Because in the video that I saw, there were several cop cars around, and they did not take him away. They could have put him in the car, checked him, patted him up and down, and then seen about the evidence. They were restraining him for some odd reason, and we haven't figured it out. They have not figured it out. We don't even know if he was forging something. I don't know, was he passing funny money, or he passed a bad check, whatever it may be. We don't even know if that even happened. They hadn't even got to the investigation part of that yet. I don't even know if they even got to the investigation of that part yet to sit there and say that he was guilty of a crime. Yet still, when he was in custody to the point where he had to be restrained restrictively. I don't say forcibly, because we've seen cops slam people on the ground. There was a story years ago, Texas, I think it was, and there was a pool party, and somebody was having a birthday, and they ended up taking over the public pool. Some neighbor called, police came. They end up arresting a 13-year-old girl, putting her in custody, but they forced her down to the ground, picked her up, slammed her to the ground, forced her on the ground, and then arrested her. Several people tried to come and help the girl, and, you know, they were being very forceful. This girl was not 100 pounds. This was not, you know, she was barely 100 pounds if she was 100. You know, she had no weapons on her, but police officers were very forceful and very aggressive in putting her in custody. So we have that instance where the soaking wet girl, literally she was in a bikini and she was 100 pounds soaking wet, and she's being forced, you know what I'm saying, in the custody, and was not given a chance. Why this particular person had to be arrested in that case, I don't know. George Floyd, he was arrested. He was already in custody when he was in the ground, when he was put on the ground, and he passed away in police custody thanks to the police officer. And I buttress that up against pandemic protests, where until the other people got very violent. Yeah, there's one video of people trying to push through a police line. Yeah, those people were arrested, but the people who had the guns, you know what I'm saying, in front of the cops, they were left alone. You know, they stood there as a barrier, had their masks on. had their mask on, trying to be the public, but there was no riot gear, even though others had guns. You know, other people had guns. You know, and come to find out there were some white supremacists there, ratcheting everything up and being intimidating, you know, trying to intimidate the legislature and I guess the police as well. And just to have those two buttressed in your mind is like, wow, they chose to not do anything with the white supremacists and people who wanted haircut, but suspect you already have in custody, we can't let up on him at all. You know, you just can't put that amount of pressure on that person. I mean, the training has to change. Which is essentially what I'm saying, that there has to be a change in the training of police officers. How is that these police officers get it wrong all in the same way? It doesn't randomly happen. What I mean by randomly happen, like the protests in Minnesota, you know that the people are out there protest because of the person dying in police custody. When the people went up to the Michigan legislature and was hooping and hollering and all the other stuff and acting all crazy on government property, they were fine with it. They knew what was happening. They knew the situation. It's not like I'm reminded of the story of the Hollywood shootout. For those who don't know, a long time ago, this was like a little bit before the police got militarized, where there was a law that military vehicles and military equipment was recycled. And what I mean recycled is that when they were done or not being used by the military, they were recycled down. They were downcycled, I guess the proper term is, and given to, you know, local police stations. You know, some people took them and things like that, but it wasn't a big thing back in the day, especially then, like in the 90s. And this Hollywood shootout, these two dudes went into a bank, robbed it with automatic rifles. They were semi-automatic rifles, but they modified them to make them automatic rifles. And the cops, they had no weapons to combat. All they had was on their side and shotguns. These people had automatic rifles. You don't see that nowadays. And in fact, in this situation, they had to go ask a gun shop owner, can we get some guns to go fight these guys? That is understandable, that you see the threat. It was a surprise. They try to be trained on things like this, and you had people coordinating, trying to make everything okay. But that was a surprise. It was violent. The police responded accordingly. You know, nobody sees that as them acting out of sorts. Nobody sees the police acting with two people, bank robbers, as they are suspected at that time, shooting up neighborhoods, shooting through cars and things like that. And that police, I don't want to say that they were justified. Oh, I guess I kind of am. You know, but there was the kind of force that you had to, with what they had, come back with to subdue these two people. Just two people, automatic rifles. This is way back in the day with automatic rifles. So when come with situations where it's just a guy on a bike and you're running him over with your car, that's a bit much. If there's a guy and it's just one guy and you have 7 people there, there should be no way he get away from all 7 of them, especially you have him surrounded. And you should have enough training to subdue him. If he's trying to get everybody in there, don't send everybody in there to go arrest his ass. At least one person go in. And if he gives himself up, just arrest him. Get him in custody. You should have enough training to know that, you know, one-on-one can't be stopped. But it seems like more and more off that cops are scared, you know, of getting in any kind of, and are not comfortable in their skill set to even take any bit of damage, you know, any bit of damage. You know what I'm saying? How are you gonna be a tough guy and you are the weakest thing in every situation? Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of situations where they're gonna have to run into danger, but how is it like you're scared of all these little guys? And I want to say that it's a cheap move to sit there and say that if somebody is in a car when you stop and they try to get away, and they get away in your direction, you then sit there and say, oh, they were attacking you with a deadly weapon. All they had was a car, and they're just trying to get away. I just don't think that's justifiable, because anytime there's a car involved, it's always attack with a deadly weapon every single time. Just like resisting arrest, it's a crime. But how is resisting arrest a crime when there's no prior crime that I'm being arrested for? And next thing, it's just amazing how police officers get so upset when you ask them what's going on. I understand it on both sides, because the police officer doesn't know you. Doesn't know you when it's pulling up on you and anything like that. And if some people, they just react differently, like aforementioned with the car taking off. That, like if a person is stopped by the police, and person is stopped by the police, and for some reason, like the police officer comes up and just says, I stopped you because I think you have a gun. Person might get scared and be like, oh my goodness, he thinks that I killed somebody. I might go on some strange, mental trip and just take off and run. I understand that. But if it's not that, or even worse, you don't know. The cop doesn't know what's going on. He's just trying to be careful. Then de-escalate it. Because if that person is nervous, it's going to get a lot worse, and you're going to put that person at ease. You're going to put that person at ease very quickly. But it's not about de-escalating. Put that person at ease. The job of the police officer is getting control of the situation. And anybody asserting any control toward a police officer is always going to be looked at bad. You can't call them out on it or anything like that. We've had an incident down here where, how can I put it? Off-duty police officer, and he was off duty, and he ended up getting into an accident. But he pulled a gun on 3 guys in a car and said, "I'll blow your fucking head off." Is that really the kind of police officers we want? No, that's not the police officers that we want. We want the police officers who's not going to go on a power trip just because they have a couple of drinks in their system. But I think he got suspended. I don't think he got fired. I think he got suspended or something like that. And it's just like, let's just be real. I mean, he has to go through some kind of training, and the retraining and whatever you want to call it. Does it really work? Well, we don't know, because we don't know what went into the training, and we don't know what goes into the retraining. Like, who's there? Who's the advocate to sit there and say, hey, this situation, maybe you should act differently. I know that a lot of people have the mentality that a cop has to get home to his family. That's their job number one. No, their first job is to the community. It's ensuring a better community. And you can't do that if you're just antagonizing parts of the community. You can't do that. I'm going to end that here, because I've been going on long enough about this, and there's so many things to go about to talk about this. But it's a very sad situation. It's a very sad situation. I'll talk more on it. I'll talk more on it, but I'm just going to end it here, because there's a lot to digest. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. I don't want to hold up too much of your time, but I'll come back to this. I'll come back to this on here, the Trajikast podcast, here on GoldenPiDgeon Gaming. My name is Trailer Stott, and thank you for listening. Be safe out there. We still got the pandemic going on, so stay home. Hopefully things will get better some way or another. The second bounce is coming. Like I said, that's a totally different thing. We'll talk about something next time. And until next time, thank you.